What's up, folks out in YouTube land? This is Ethan, aka Lord Tupperware, coming at you with a special edition video because, as you may have noticed, if you're an avid follower of the channel here, or if you're new to the channel, we don't have a video version of episode 335 up on the channel this week. I was starting to edit it last night, and I thought, this just doesn't feel right, because as we did in the episode, if you listen to it, or if you haven't, we went over the most recent Arena Cube list in preparation for the Arena Cube Open at the end of the month, with full knowledge that the new list would be coming out eventually, but based on our release schedule, we just wouldn't have time to look at those cards or even play with them before doing a special episode. And we've promised, and we will still be doing, a video at the end of next week, Thursday or Friday will drop, once we've had a few days to get our hands on the new cube, to come at you with, hey, here's what we think the updates are. But then yesterday morning, Monday morning, they dropped the new cube list, and it is a big update. And while some of the predictions we made about what we thought might come in or go out maybe from the cube are true, there's just a huge number. So we'll make sure we have a link to the article, to the full cube list in the description of the episode here, or the video here. But as you can see, based on this amazing comparing Arena Cube document that we have from Cube Cobra, we have 217 cards coming in and 227 cards going out. So we're going to just go through all of these. I'll linger on some of the alchemy cards, which I'm not familiar with, and if you're like me, maybe if you're limited only, maybe you won't be familiar with them either. We'll go through some of the ones that just seem sort of like, yeah, we're getting this, we're losing that, whatever. And I would say largely looking at this update, it's pretty great. We're getting a lot of power, and a lot of the clunky last picks from the cube the last time around seem to be going away. And some pretty big shakeups in terms of archetype support as well. So let's dive right in. We're going to start this list with white. This is sorted by creature, mana value, or sorry, card type, and then mana value. So we'll start with the one drops. We're getting Giver of Runes, and we're getting Soldier of the Pantheon. Those are great. Giver of Runes, it's a pretty big upgrade for white aggressive decks. Losing Hopeful Initiate and Lunarch Veteran, that's fine. Lunarch Veteran, as we'll see, the nod to the last gasps of what once was a black-white life gain deck, it is no more. And Lunarch Veteran going, I think, is a nod to that. Here we have the first of our alchemy cards, which is Captain Eberhart, 1 and a white for a 1/2 double strike. Spells cast from among cards you drew this turn, cost 1 less to cast. And spells cast from among cards your opponent drew this turn, cost 1 more to cast. Pretty nice alchemy card there. Selfless Spirit, excellent addition. Sigardian Evangel, another alchemy card. It's a 2 mana 3/1, and then when it comes into play, you tap a thing and it conjures a copy of itself into your hand. So if you have 6 mana, you can cast this 3 times. Pretty sweet. Played with it before on Arena. In some cube, I guess not this one. Remorseful Cleric, out. Totally fine. I've no reason why this card was anything special. Big hitter here with Monastery Mentor coming in to the cube. I think that's going to be a pretty powerful card. I mean, it's great in Vintage Cube, obviously less of the sort of non-creature spell support without Moxen or whatever, but I do think still will be quite good. And Thalia Heretic Cathar, another great hoser for white aggressive decks, as the white aggressive player, I should say. And then Banalish Marshal, out, which I'm actually pretty happy to see. I think cards like this that are really only good for one deck being mono white, or just to screw up other players' mana bases, I think is not great. As we thought, well, actually, sort of halfway as we thought, not the full cycle of the Praetors is in. I believe just Elish Norn and Sheoldred is in from March of the Machine. No surprise there, that card's excellent. Elish Norn, Mother of Machines from Phyrexia Obi-Wan, also in. No surprise here, though. It seems to be as an exchange for another Enter the Battlefield payoff that we'll see cut from the cube in just a minute. And big news, the full cycle of OG Titans is in. Sun Titan, Frost Titan, Grave Titan, all the buddies, all 5 of them in the cube this time around. So that's really exciting to see. Out, 2 cards we shouted out on the podcast, Venerated Loxodon and Sanctuary Warden. And I think totally fine, especially if we're getting the power level of these kinds of cards. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to try and make sure that I have the cards visible to you fully as I scroll over them. 2 Planeswalkers in, Archangel Elspeth from March of the Machine, no surprise there. And of course, Eternal Wanderer from 1, not surprised to see that at all. Elspeth Resplendent is out, and also not super surprised there. This is definitely the weakest of these 3, and so if we only are having room for 3 walkers, if we want to showcase some walkers, this makes sense to me. Pretty huge here. Swords to Plowshares in, just just Swords to Plowshares in. Patriarch's Humiliation, which I thought was a fine removal spell, and perhaps even with the perpetual text here, sometimes better. Not better than Swords, obviously, but quite strong. But that's out. Blessed Alliance in. I don't love this card personally, but we'll see how it plays out. Kabira Takedown. It does seem that, I believe, I don't want to say all because I haven't looked at this full list of on the left of the cards staying in. I believe all the MDFCs that are lands are out. So Kabira Takedown out. Unbreakable Formation out. I think it's fine. Seeing this card go is okay by me. Pretty big shakeup in the sorcery department. We have Collective Effort and Wrath of God in. Wrath of God joining Day of Judgment, but I assume in place of Farewell, another card we shouted out. And look at this list. Lay Down Arms out, Banishing Slash, Kayla's Command. I mean, largely I'm fine with all of these cuts. Sad to see my little Reanimator package from my Boros or Jeskai Reanimator deck out with Invoke Justice and Repair and Recharge, but what can you do? Losing Dancing Sword as well. We'll have just a few more cards out than in. The cube used to be 550 cards. It is now going to be 540 cards. Moving on to enchantments, we see an Ossification as a removal spell. We see In the Trenches as an Anthem effect plus kind of removal spell as well. And then out, as I mentioned before, we're going to see something out in terms of the Enter the Battlefield build-arounds. Well, Teleportation Circle, pour one out for that. Seems like they want to keep that a pretty fringe deck, maybe, with not a ton. Keep the, massive amounts of payoffs plus enablers for perhaps Tinkerer's Cube, that type of thing. Leyline Binding, out. Overwhelming Splendor, out. An Invasion of Gobakhan in. How can I get this on screen properly? Perhaps like that. There we go. Invasion of Gobakhan is in. That's been making waves in Constructed, and quite good for aggressive decks as well in this cube, I anticipate. And we are going to be seeing some more invasions as well as we move down the list. So that takes us on to blue. White, I feel like, has honestly the least amount of cards shaken up from it. So as we move into blue, we get into the 1-drop creatures. We see Agent of Rafine in. I actually don't love this card. I'm fine to see them shake things up, but we've seen this in other iterations of Cube, and it's just generally been a little too slow. It's a 1-mana 1/2, pay 2, tap. You conjure a duplicate of the top card of your opponent's library into your hand. It perpetually gains. You may spend manas or many mana of any color to cast it, and then they exile the top card of their library face down. That's coming in. Combat Courier and Delver of Secrets are coming out. We see Fairy Mastermind in. We see Jacob Hauken Inspector in. There it is. We see Snapcaster Mage in. And we see Surge Engine in, which I'm in for. This could be a nice defensive early play for some blue control decks, / a finisher later on. Something to do with your mana. If you're passing with counter magic up, I actually think this will play out pretty well. And then losing some clunkers, right? I was never a huge fan of Trickster, Stormcaller, or Spectral Adversary in the cube. Moving on to the threes. Yep, we guessed it. No surprise. Chrome Host Seed Shark skyrocketing, I would assume, to the top of the power rankings of the cube. This card should be excellent. Futurist Spell Thief. This is it copies a spell on the stack or conjures a copy of a spell on the stack into your hand, and you can spend mana of any color to cast it. Skystrike Officer, perhaps. I don't think a nod to soldiers necessarily, but perhaps a nod to some blue aggressive strategies as well. I'm not sure. This is a powerful card, but where will it slot in? Unclear. And then Vendilion Click, another staple of any sort of powered cube, I would say, on MTGO. And then coming out, again, nothing really sad about an MDFC and Glasspool Mimic, Nimble Obstructionist, whatever, and Poppet Stitcher. No tears being shed there. Seeing God Eternal Kefnet come in, which is kind of confusing to me, right? Because it's from War of the Spark, right? This isn't a new card to Arena by any stretch, but be interested to see how it plays out. A couple of alchemy cards here with Nightclub Bouncer, a flash creature that bounces a non-land permanent and then makes it cost 2 more to cast for the rest of the game. And then Cybus Siphoner, sort of like a Snapcaster Mage variant, costs 2 less to cast if you have no instants or sorceries in your hand. And then we're losing no tears again for Displacer Kitten. Sort of always an awkward card in the Blink deck, I would say, because you want your creatures are the things with ETBs, but then you need non-creature spells to trigger this, etc. Micromancer, cute, but whatever. It's a 4-drop dime a dozen. Same with Amalgam. And we lose Mind Flayer, which again always felt pretty flimsy to me. So I largely just love these changes. There it is, Frosty Titan. Torrential Gear Hulk back in. I assume this has been in before. Certainly we've seen it before in conjunction with some big, amazing spells. And then Warzone Duplicator. This is, you get to bounce a thing when it comes into play, and then it's a copy of that thing. Not it's a copy. If it wasn't a token, you conjure a duplicate of it into your hand. Yeah. So more conjuring happening. Agent of Treachery in. I imagine there will be some shenanigans with this card as well. Scholar of the Lost Trove is out. That's a real pour one out moment, I think. I think this card was really, really strong. And it'll be interesting to see if do any of these top 4 cards rather in the 6-drop plus slot feel like they're doing a similar thing as Scholar was. And then Tolarian Terror. That was a cute idea, but never really stuck. Blue's getting 2 Planeswalkers here with Narset, Parter of Veils, and Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. I think there might be some instances of Proliferate in the cube, so it'll be interesting to see if you can get some more counters onto Narset. And certainly if this hoses some strategies as well. Moving on to Blue's spells. Getting Repeal, awesome to see. Losing Fading Hope and Shore Up, no tears there. Getting Censor, getting Cyclonic Rift, that's huge. Cyclonic Rift is excellent. And Make Disappear, another nice cheap counterspell. Losing an MDFC counterspell. Gaining Absorb Energy, this counters a spell, and then cards in your hand that share a card type with that spell perpetually gain. It costs 1 less to cast. Losing Saw It Coming as the Foretell spell, and Salundi Vision, even though Approach of the Second Sun is still in, and this was largely the only card that Salundi Vision was good with, so no tears there. Kindred Denial in, counter target spell, seek a card with the same mana value as that spell, and Sea Double as well coming in, so that's interesting. And then losing Behold the Multiverse, Urza's Command, and Discover the Formula, very powerful card coming out with Discover. Perhaps an attempt to nerf blue? Well, not so much, because we're getting Blue Sun's Twilight in, and Time Warp is back. 3 blue, you take an extra turn after this one, just back. Doesn't exile itself, so recurable, quite strong. Losing the non-recurable Foretell, Alrund's Epiphany, Time Walk, and losing another clunky MDFC. The enchantment coming in, the Modern Age. Very interesting here to see Modern Age coming in. Wondering what the reasoning is for this. And then losing, again, a bunch of clunkers or niche cards. Curious Obsession, the last gasps of this blue-white Auras deck that's no longer supported. Omen of the Sea. Patient Rebuilding, which was just too slow. Mirari Conjecture, again, I think largely too slow. And one with the Multiverse. Pour one out again for my white reanimation spells. All right, let's look at black. Black's losing Ashnod, Flesh Mechanist, and Concealing Curtains in the 1-drop slot. Ashnod was nothing really. Concealing Curtains was good, but again, a little slow. Moving on to the 2s, huge shakeup here. We have Ayara Oathsworn. If you're like me, you haven't seen this card before. This is 1 on a black for a 2/2 with Menace. When it deals combat damage to a player, if it has fewer than 4 counters on it, you put a counter on it. And if it has 4 or more, or then if it has exactly 4 counters on it, you search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Next up, another rock-solid 2-drop, Misery Shadow, Scrap Heap Scrounger, which I'm honestly shocked wasn't in the cube before, Swarm Saboteur, a ninjutsu card that conjures Virus Beetles into your hand when it connects, and Vran Executioner Thane. This is actually a pretty sweet addition to my favorite black sack decks. This is 1 on black for a 2/2. Whenever one or more other creatures you control dies, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. It triggers only once each turn. And the reason that it's interesting to see this in is that Blood Artist is out. So as we'll see, a couple of big dings for my favorite deck in the format. I don't think it makes it untenable. Certainly not at all. There's still Bastion of Remembrance in. We've got this Vran, which is very cute. But interesting. It'll be interesting to see if this is nerfed significantly or not. Acquisitions Expert out. Gifted Aetherborn and Reassembling Skeleton. All totally fine with that. Getting Rotting Regisaur in, very interesting, especially because I think Great Henge got a lot better this iteration. Also see if there's any sort of discard synergies happening. This is also just pretty good when you've got, in the black sack decks, when you've got the recurable threats, the one drops, like, we can see them over here. There's Gutter Bones. There's, what do we got? Cult Conscript, some recurable cards you can get back there. Sedgemoor Witch coming in, and then Urborg Scavengers, which is 2 and a black for a 2/2. When ETBs or attacks, you exile target card from a graveyard. You put a counter on the Scavengers, and if the card exiled was a creature that had, abilities, it gets that abilities, flying, death touch, whatever. Braids out, always was too slow for the sack deck, in my opinion. Shakedown Heavy out, I guess Rotting Regisaur is the fatty boom boom 3-drop of choice. Eben Death Dracolich out. Getting in, Archpriest of Shadows, nice to see that. I assumed we would see some backup coming in. I think Archpriest makes sense. Sheoldred, as I said, the flip Praetors from Mom. We get this and we get Elishnorn. And there it is, Gravy Tea. And Forgefire Automaton, another alchemy card. This is 7 mana for an 8/5. It has Prototype for 2 and a black for a 3/2. And at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card with power less than Forgefire Automaton's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. Its base power perpetually becomes equal to Forgefire Automaton's power. I think this is also a pretty interesting card for the black decks. We'll see. And black losing, Witch of the Moors, again, one of the last gasps of this life gain deck. The Hourglass Coven, very powerful card that we're losing. No sweat there, no skin off my back, I'd say. Grave Titan is a fine replacement. And Sheoldred Whispering One, also not a card to write home about, in my opinion. Black's gaining 2 Planeswalkers, 2 pretty dang good Planeswalkers. Liliana the Last Hope, excellent against aggressive strategies, and Liliana Dreadhorde General, just a fantastic finisher. And then similarly in the 6-drop slot, it's losing Professor Onyx, which was never really good because the Magecraft of it all never really came together for black. Moving on to its instance, gaining Black Sun's Twilight. So all 3, no White Sun's Twilight, I don't believe. So we have Blue Suns and Black Suns. Sheoldred's Edict coming in, losing Malakir Rebirth, another MDFC, a Village Rites, and a Sap Vitality, another alchemy card. I'm not really feeling anything there. Soul Servitude in, this is an Edict. When they sacrifice a non-token creature, you can discard a card, and if you do, you conjure a duplicate of that card into your hand. There's Pylon, the Convoke removal spell, and Vraska's Contempt. Those are both coming in. We're losing Hogger Mauling and Hostile Negotiations. Again, just like, MDFCs are all out, it seems like, for whatever design reason that is. And Hostile Negotiations, like, this was just another last pick clunker. So these are all great swaps. We're getting basically a strict upgrade of Mind Spike over Duress. Makes sense to me. Getting Collective Brutality. Maybe we're getting, I don't think there are reanimation spells, though, is the thing. So, but this is more discard that we're seeing, right, with Regisaur and this. My spidey sense is up about that currently. We have a Drown in Ichor. There's another instance of Proliferate there. And then Undercity Plunder. 2 mana for they discard a card, and then they can discard an additional card, and if they don't, you conjure a duplicate of a random card from their library into your hand. I think that's fine, not great, would be my guess. And then Agadeem's Awakening, Go Blank, and Inscription of Ruin all out. Black getting a couple bangers in here with Extinction Event as a sweeper. And actually a very interesting sweeper because Garuda is in the cube. Companions, baby. Breach the Multiverse, as we guessed, coming in. And Invoke Despair out. Largely, I'm a huge fan of removing these quadruple and triple mana or color mana costed cards from the cube. I just think like the less sort of monocolor stuff that's encouraged, the better. It makes drafting more interesting. Once you have an Invoke Despair and you want to put it in your deck, your draft is largely constricted by you can only take black cards. Losing all of Black's artifacts, Blood Fountain, Altar of Baal, Transmogrant's Crown, and Bolus's Citadel. Another gasp of that life gain deck going down the toilet. And again, all of these cards totally fine. Altar of Baal doesn't really even work with the sacrifice deck because it exiles the creature, etc. It was certainly playable in those decks, but I think losing all these is totally fine. Losing more enchantments, Elspeth's Nightmare, one of the great stabilizers for this deck against aggressive strategies. Losing Sanguine Brushstroke, the second copy of Blood Artist, and losing Demonic Pact, another trinkety, cute, but bad last pick. Gaining 2 very powerful invasions here in Invasion of Innistrad, the -13/-13 flips to make 2 2/2s, and Invasion of Fiora, the sweeper that flips into Marchesa, Resolute Monarch. Huge shakeup for black, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's in my heart that I'm like, I don't want the changes in black to be so big that pet deck of mine, the black sacrifice deck, is no good anymore, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, red. What do we got going on in red? Gaining Fanatical Firebrand, fine. Gaining Vindictive Flamestoker, which I think is excellent. I think this is a really good include. Losing Charger, Phoenix Chick, and Voldaren Epicure. Sad to see Epicure go, honestly. Hashtag rectangles. But these other two make a ton of sense. Gaining Abbot of Carol Keep, Magmatic Channeler, Radha's Firebrand. This is a 2-mana 3/1. When it attacks, target creature defending player controls with power less than Radha's Firebrand power can't block this turn. Yeah. Okay. And then Robber of the Rich in from Eldraine. So some goodies for red aggro. Losing Battlecry Goblin, Eidolon of the Great Revel, Riveteer's Requisitioner, Smoldering Egg out, a little nerf to blue-red, Viashino Pyromancer, and Voltaic Visionary. Curious about these swaps. I mean, a lot of these cards, like Egg, and certainly the aggressive cards like Pyromancer and Visionary, and maybe even Battlecry Goblin, they were serviceable. So curious about these swaps to see this shake up here. In the threes, we've got Professional Facebreaker, Hello Rectangles, and we've also got Toralf's Disciple. It's a 3-mana 3/3 haste. When it attacks, you conjure 4 lightning bolts into your library, then shuffle. Losing Devilish Valet, Chain Whirler. Again, get these triple pipped cards out of here. And Phyrexian Dragon Engine is out. I wonder if that also, I assume that means that also, Mishra Claimed by Gix is out as well. Moving on to 4-drops. We've got Atsushi, Captivating Crew. I don't love Crew coming in. I think Crew is clunky and slow. Hellrider in, that's a huge boost. Rampaging Raptor in, feels like a huge boost. And Town Razor Tyrant, what's this? 4-mana 4/4 flyer. When there's a battlefield, target non-basic land you don't control loses all abilities except mana abilities and gains at the beginning of your end step. This permanent deals 2 damage to you unless you sacrifice it. Nice. And losing Jaxis, the Troublemaker, and Torbrin, Thane of Redfell. I am pro these swaps, I would say, except for Captivating Crew. Red gaining Goldspan Dragon, Terror of the Peaks, and Zealous Conscripts in the 5-drop slot. Losing Brash Taunter, totally fine with that. Losing Ox, I like Ox personally. I like it as a little bit of a way to refuel for red, but it's certainly getting the power here in this top end. Gaining Inferno Titan, losing Tyrant of Kerr Ridges, totally reasonable here. Not gaining any red Planeswalkers and losing Zerial. I don't think Zerial was anything great in terms of what it did for the red deck, so that being out is fine. Gaining Play with Fire, deal 2 to any target if a player's dealt damage this way, scry 1. Losing Fiery Impulse and Lightning Axe makes a lot of sense to me. We're gaining Electrostatic Blast. This was a 2 damage spell, and then when your next instant or sorcery spell is cast, you exile the top 3 cards of your library, and you can play one of those until end of turn. Volcanic Spite, I like that. Getting to loot a little bit. And then Magma Quake, little expensive red sweeper out. MDFC out, and Stoke the Flames as a Convoke burn spell. So getting a couple burn, right? This is any target, all coming in. That's interesting. Red's gaining Perforos's Intervention. It's gaining Molten Impact, 2 mana for 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker at sorcery speed. Molten Impact deals damage equal to the excess to target creature or planeswalker. Okay, more burn coming in. Brotherhood's End, swapping with Sweltering Suns as the deal 3 of choice, or the sweeper of 3 of choice. Collective Defiance in, and here is Warcrafting in. Okay, so some card advantage or card selection for red. And then losing Ironcrag Feet, yes, please. Mizzix's Mastery out. Wow, that's a huge hit for the blue-red deck. Seize the Storm, never good, and Star of Extinction, clunky and expensive. Red also gaining Urabrask's Forge. I'll be curious to see. I had my eyes on this when I was looking through the sets from this year. I'm curious to see if this is too slow or not. I don't know. Very good in regular limited. Who knows how good it'll be in cube. Losing Makeshift Munitions. Losing Fires of Invention. That's brutal. And losing Double Vision. That also makes a lot of sense. But that's the second hit to the blue-red spells deck, right? Losing Egg and losing Double Vision. Gaining Invasion of Mercadia. Nice. Totally reasonable little draw spell there. All right, that takes us on to green, losing a couple of clunky, non-synergistic 1-drops, via Pishiri and Tenacious Pup. The 2-drop slot is a huge shakeup. So let's take a look at what we're missing first. We're losing nothing to write home about. I keep saying that, but it's really like, I'm like, these cards were in the cube. Dryad Greenseeker out. Gallagreeters, I like this card, but out. Masked Vandal, Satyr Wayfinder, Shigeki Jukai Visionary, Surfaron the Hengehammer, and Tangled Florahedron. Shout out to these MDFCs going. What are we gaining? Manadork Scrapgorger, great. Manadork into threat, great. Deeproot Wayfinder, threat. Duskwatch Recruiter, this is a powerful card. Fauna Shaman, another powerful card. Mayor of Averbrook, I imagine this will be clunky, not that big. Menagerie Curator, this is an Alchemy Manadork that nets you cards. Quirion Beastcaller, interesting. Counter theme, synergy stuff, aggro, I don't know. Tarmogoyf, cute. And Wildborn Preserver, great. Okay, let's take a look at the 3s coming in. Augur of Autumn, awesome. Briarbridge Tracker, awesome. Ramunap Excavator, another pet card of mine. I imagine this will be fun, not great. And then Tranquil Frillback, 3 mana, 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you can pay green up to 3 times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, choose up to that many. You destroy target artifact or enchantment, exile a graveyard, gain 4 life. Interesting. I certainly imagine this will be great out of the board in best of 3 for the open. Losing Dryad of the Elysian Grove. That's surprising to me, honestly. So we'll have to see if that feels like a pretty big impact to the green ramp lands deck. Jukai Liberator out, whatever. Titania, so I think they're cutting all of the meld pairs from Bro, which is fine. And Topiary Stomper, which is also, like, I'm fine that this is gone, but a slight hit, I would think, for Great Henge, which is still in. And I think we'll be fine, but this is a slight hit to Great Henge. Because you could play Stomper on 3, ramp, and then Henge on 4. Okay, what's coming in? Forceful Cultivator. Great, this is a 4 mana 2/3. This is sort of like the blue Snapcast, right? Costs 2 less to cast if you have no lands in hand, and then it rampant growths you. Nightpack Ambusher is in. That's interesting. This plus Mayor of Averbrook is interesting to me. I don't know if they're trying to make green flash a thing, if they just think this is good, if they have is blue-green flash trying to be a thing. I don't know. We'll have to see when we get to the multicolor cards. Okay, coming in. Verdurous Gearhulk. Vorin Klex. Okay. That's the 3 out of the 5 flip Praetors here. And Workshop Warchief. Thragtusk Light, even though Thragtusk still in for sure. And then coming out, Defiler of Vigor, fine. Elder Gargaroth, fine. I always thought this card was pretty overrated. Rootwire Amalgam, yeah, nothing. And Silverback Elder, nothing. Okay, coming in, Kogla, awesome. Primeval Titan, awesome. Ulvenwald Hydra out. So this searched up a land as well. Primetime does it better. Primetime doesn't matter. Is Field still going to be in? We'll have to see. Wow. The Mac Daddy himself, Craterhoof Behemoth, making its way into the cube. Okay, I see you. Pretty big Planeswalker shakeup. Vivian Reed, the only one to survive. Coming out, Vivian Arkbow, Renan 7, and Vivian on the Hunt. Coming in, wow, Nisu shakes the world. This will be, I would imagine this will be one of the best cards in the cube. Nissa Ascended Animist. Not one of the best cards in the cube, but it'll be cute to see how it plays out. We're losing Tamio Safekeeping. We're losing Wilt. We're gaining Sylvan Smite, which puts a counter on target creature you control if you weren't the starting player, and then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Whatever. And then just losing a ton of sorceries. We're losing Abundant Harvest, Awaken the Woods, Balaged Recovery, Migration Path, Scape Shift, LOL, Rishikar's Expertise, and Turn Timber Symbiosis. Again, I feel so good about these cards leaving the cube, truly. Coming in for artifacts, we're getting Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. I think a nod to this counter life, perhaps getting beefed up a little bit. We're gaining Conduit of Worlds. Second, you can play lands from your graveyard card. Okay, choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, can't cast additional spells this turn. Interesting. And then losing Hardened Scales. Okay, well, you can't be making counters a thing if you're losing Hardened Scales. Fight Rigging gone, Glorious Sunrise gone, and the World Spell gone. Okay, so that takes us on to multicolored. Right off the bat for Azorius, gaining Invasion of New Phyrexia / Teferia Kosi of Zalfir rather. Yeah, that's awesome. Gaining Spell Queller, awesome. Losing Tameshi, Urza, and Time Wipe. Fine with all that. Makes sense for losing Urza. Tameshi was usually too slow, and Time Wipe, whatever. It's just another sweeper. For Dimir, we are a bit of a shakeup here. Losing Rona's Vortex and Urtai Resurrected. Gaining quite a bit. We're gaining Vesuvian Mist. It's a bounce, and if it's kicked, you conjure a duplicate of that card. Interesting. Rona is coming in. Another looter. We're seeing quite a bit of, we're seeing Fauna Shaman coming in. We're seeing Rona coming in. I don't know if that means anything. Hostage Taker. Oof. Again, one of the best cards coming in. Kaito. Blue-black Tempo? Question mark. Garuda, Bahama. Yeah, Garuda's in. Spoiler when we get to well, it's right there. Obosh. Obosh is out. Garuda's coming in. And Toxrill the Corrosive. I mean, it is 7 mana. It is 7 mana, so we'll have to see where this slots in. Also, lol at putting this as a Dimir card. Looking at Rakdos. Rakdos getting some goodies. Blood Tithe Harvester in. Valky / Tybalt coming in. Sorry, there it is over there. Ayara, Widow of the Realm coming in. Another Sacrifice Outlet. Now, it's not repeatable, right? You can't do it multiple times per turn, but they lose X. They lose X life. You gain X life, where X is the sacrificed permanent's mana value. So potentially pretty huge there. Gaining Crucius, Titan of the Waves. What does this do? It's 3 mana, 3/1. At the beginning of your end step, you can discard a card. If you do, you create a treasure token. You choose Ambitious or Expedient. If you choose Ambitious, seek a card with greater mana value than the discarded card. If you choose Expedient, you seek a card with lesser mana value. Interesting. So another discard. But I haven't seen any madness stuff. It'd be interesting to see how we're messing with the graveyard or discarded cards. We're getting Judith. Another, this is a boon for the sacrifice decks. Cut to Ribbons and Falconwrath Aristocrat, another sack outlet. Losing Logamos, totally fine. Losing Mayhem Devil, kind of stinky there for the sack deck. Losing Emberstone Predator, but gaining Aristocrat, that's sort of apples to apples. Losing Mishra and losing Obosh. Totally happy with all that. Gruul, I think, gets quite a boost. Loses Targnar and Domri. Targnar was nothing. Domri was good, but also not great. Gains Maglaz, the best rare in Phyrexia, all be one. Gains Bloodbraid Elf. Love me a Bloodbraid Elf. Huntmaster of the Fells, whatever. Kogla and Yadaro, interesting. Atali Primal Conqueror, lol again at calling this red-green, but whatever. Atali is busted, coming on in. What does Selesnya gain? Well, Selesnya gains Avacyn's Pilgrim, Voice of Resurgence, and Knight of the Reliquary, another land. So we've got some land stuff happening, right? With Knight, with Ramunap Excavator, interesting there, and Mirari's Wake. Hello. So this is like one of the best cards in, I think it's Tinkerer's Cube is what it's in, maybe Chromatic Cube, maybe both. I will be curious to see how it plays out here. Then we're losing Conclave Mentor, Ajani, and Drizzt Do'Urden. So it does seem like it's interesting. They're cutting Conclave Mentor, but bringing in Ozolith. I'm not sure what to make of that, but I like bringing in Knight and Wake for Selesnya here. Orzhov gets a banger in Lingering Souls and a removal spell in Anguished Unmaking. It loses Phyrexian Missionary and loses Cruel Celebrant, which is huge. So not only like Cruel Celebrant for the black sacrifice of it all, Cruel Celebrant really was a card you could peg that's going to wheel. It's going to come around 12th pick or whatever. And that was pretty important. So sad to see that go, but I don't think this deck is as nerfed as perhaps people are thinking. Let's check out what's going on with Izzet. Okay, so we've got Prowess, Kenra Spellspear. Third Path Iconoclast, another like young Pyromancer variant for the blue-red spells deck. It gets Electrolyze. Oh my god, I did not notice this. I truly did. I looked at this list twice already. I did not notice that Luchery was coming in. A bold include for Cube that is already singleton. And then Prismari Command. It's losing Sprite Dragon, and it's losing Ral Storm Conduit. So double spell is dead, right? We're losing double vision. We're losing Ral. We're not copying spells here. Huge shakeup for Golgari here. Losing Baby Lasagna, one of my favorite cards, but I know no one else liked it, and losing Old Rutstein, Gus Chiggins. Yeah, neither of these cards were anything, except for the fact that you could be like, it's gonna wheel. What does it get? Well, it gets Deathrite Shaman. That's a reason to have lands in the graveyard. It gets Terra Sunder as a removal spell. It gets Fiend Artisan. It seems to be much more concerned with dealing with the graveyard, right? We have Fiend Artisan coming in. We have Grim Flayer with Delirium. We have Ishkana with Delirium. Another powerful rare from 1 in Glissa Sunslayer. We have Maelstrom Pulse removal. Garruk Relentless. I have no idea why this is a Golgari card. And then Nantuko Slicer, 4-mana 3/2 with Kicker Black. When it ETBs, you return target card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's kicked, you conjure a duplicate of target card in an opponent's graveyard into your hand. And it gains the whole, like, you can cast it with mana of any color. So that's interesting. Big shakeups here with Boros and Simic as well. Boros losing Angel Fire Ignition and Blade Historian. Totally fine with that. Again, I cannot stress enough how much I love them moving away from these extremely restrictive mana costs. Gaining Plarg, Dean of Chaos. Okay. Rip Apart, fine. Older Raven Guard Marshal. This is an Alchemy Horizons card. Enters the battlefield. Another target non-token creature you control gains double team, right? And when it attacks, conjure a duplicate of another target non-token attacking creature into your hand. Right. Okay, that's a good one. Nahiri, love this one. And Archangel Avacyn. Again, lol at this being Boros, but sure. This is more of a, I think, just how Cube Cobra slots things in than anything else. Okay, and then Simic. Losing Croaking Counterpart, another fun card that you could get pretty late, was good for the Bant ETB deck. Losing Tameo and losing Colossal Sky Turtle. Sure, what does it gain? Growth Spiral, Hydroid Krasis, Kiora Behemoth Beckoner, Uro. Wow, getting Spiral, Krasis, and Uro, and Tatyova. So we've got, it's interesting, gaining Tatyova but losing, I mean, Oracle of Moldiah is still in, but losing Dryad of the Elysian Grove is interesting. And then what's coming in? Some 3-color stuff, right? We've got Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh. We've got Siege Rhino, a classic. We've got Zergo and Ojutai. This is a strong card. And we've got Atraxa. Certainly no surprise at seeing Atraxa, though not really seeing any support for it, really. 5-color, what's coming in? Kenrith and Kami War and losing Kyodai. Fine. Kyodai was not really anything. All right, that takes us on to colorless. Serpent is in. Great. Circuit Mender, Crystalline Giant, and Pilgrim's Eye. Crystalline Giant, the OG, I used to call this the soul ring of the Arena Cube because it was the colorless pack one, pick one. But that fell off, certainly, in years to come. And now its time has come here. Platinum Angel out, thank God. Emrakul the Promised End in, and that's along with Ulamog, so that's interesting to see. Karn Living Legacy out, yeah, that makes sense. Ugin the Ineffable in. Mishra's Bauble in, that's cute. Some vehicles and equipment out, Collar, Boots, and Hearse. Some equipment in, Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Forge and Frontier, it's the red-green one, and then Worn Power Stone. And then we're losing Ether Sphere, Harvester, Lantern, Monument Fine, and Sigiled Sword of Valor. Oh my God, these are great cuts. We're getting Key to the Archive back. So not only is Time Warp in, but you can also get Time Warp from Key. So Key is back, losing Argosy, Icy, and Processor. We're losing Dollhouse. We're losing Deck of Many Things. We're losing Might Zone and Weak Zone, Orrery, God Pharaoh's Gift, and Portal to Phyrexia. So that whole package of Invoke, Repair, Recharge, Portal, Behold, that's all gone. And then we're getting Invasion of Ravnica. Not surprised to see that in either. Fine removal spell, flip. Nothing special, but I think makes sense that it's in. Okay, let's check out the lands. So we're losing Cycling, and fast. We're gaining pain, flip, and what were these? Slow? Draw two or more slow lands. So that's 2 in, 3 out for all of these. Yeah. And then anything special coming in or out? We're getting all of the creature lands from, or no, not all. We're just getting a cycle. So we're getting Hall, Lair, Sokanzan, Takanuma. Okay. We're losing Argoth, Bonder's Enclave, and the castles. 3 castles, I suppose. And losing Wilds. What's staying in? We have Beseju, Cave, Barrens, Den, Iganjo, Fabled Passage, Field of Ruin, Field of the Dead, Crossroads. I have Mutavault. I assume there's like a cycle thing happening here. I'm not sure. Still have the triomes and the like all the triomes and not triomes. Sorry, those are off screen. Okay. Oh wait, and we're also okay. That's what I was wondering. I was like, these aren't all. So we're also losing the. Yes, we're losing all the fast lands, but then in the enemy colors, we're losing these Modern Horizons sack lands. Okay. Interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think. What are you most excited for? What do you think got a big hit? What do you think got nerfed? What do you think got buffed? And we'll see you. We'll have an episode next week for you with Wilds of Eldraine previews, and then we'll be back midweek prior to the Arena Open with an update once we get our hands on this cube. Happy cubing, everybody. See ya.